Is that Fiomi is Bava Basra 154, one Kufnun Dalad, but we're going to start at the bottom of Kufnun Gimel Mabays on the last two lines of 153b. The daf is dedicated for a Shmir for the Chayalim, Hatzalah for the Shvuyim, and a Yeshua for Am Yisrael in this eighth Tzara. We had a discussion in our Mishnah where we have a person who's called a nosein, a giver, and a makabel, a receiver. And the giver gave a property to the receiver, and then the giver says, "Well, no, actually, I was sick. I was a shlimera, so now that I'm better, I'm allowed to get it back." So the mayor says, "No, the shlimera has to bring proof that he was actually sick at the time." So whereas the Chum say, "No, the receiver has to bring proof that he was healthy in order to get it." And we said on the top of 153b that this relates to the dispute between Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Nassan. Rabbi Nassan says we go by the Chazaka da Hashta. We go by the assumption that what is now is the case with this person, that since he's healthy now, that's what Rabbi Meir says, he has to bring proof that he was sick. That's what Rabbi Meir is like Rabbi Nassan. Whereas the Gemara suggests that Rabbi Yaakov is like the Chachamim, would go by Hazaka in general. Since this person has the property and the receiver wants to get it from the giver, he has to bring a proof that in fact he was sick. And so the Chachamim Omer Mamotzi Chavero, that he would have to bring a proof that in fact he was healthy. Rabbi Yaakov says the Chachamim would have to bring a proof that he was healthy and that the gift is irreversible. So now the Chachamim say, "Amotzi mechaver ol haraya." So he has to bring a proof according to the Chachamim. So raya b'mai, what kind of proof? We're on top of 154a. So Rav Huna Amar, excuse me. Rav Huna says a raya ba'edim, that he has to bring proof with witnesses. This is the way we've been explaining the Mishnah until now. That, hold on one second. He has to bring proof with witnesses. Rav Christopher Rabba Bar Huna Amri Raya B'Kiyum Ashtar, which we'll discuss a lot on this topic, the certification of the contract. That's how they have to bring proof. So first we'll start with Rav Huna. Rav Huna says Raya B'Edim Kamifal Give the Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Natsan. That this is exactly the way we've explained the Mishnah until now. That this is the dispute between Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Natsan. Rabbi Meir to Rabbi Natsan. The Rabbi Meir who says that we assume that since now he's healthy, he was always healthy. That's the chazaka of now. And so therefore he has to bring proof that he was sick, like Rabbi Natsan says. The Rabbanan, Rabbi Yaakov, the Rabbanan say, no, we follow the chazaka of what is now. Since now it's in the giver's domain, he has to bring proof. The receiver has to bring proof that in fact he was healthy when he gifted it to him. Whereas Rav Chisda v'Rabba bar Rabuna Amri Raya b'Kiyum Ashtar Kamiflagei. So no, they have to bring a proof. They have to certify the document. So Kiyum Ashtar is basically a certification of a document that it's like kind of like a notary that a court signs or witnesses sign that they saw these signatures and they recognize these signatures and therefore it's certified. So that gives an added level of sort of strength to the contract. So therefore, so how do we explain in this context? So Rabbi Meir is of the position that remember we said in our Mishnah that Rabbi Meir is of the position that he has to bring a proof that he was indeed a shlimera. So therefore, basically it's as though the contract is already certified. And therefore, if the giver wants to keep his property, he has to bring a proof that he was a shlimera. Why? Because Rameir is of the position that they're arguing about a shtar shakasvo tzarcha kaimo. They're arguing about a position, but moda b'shtar shakasvo. If the person admits he wrote the contract, tzarcha kaimo, then do we still need to certify? The Rameir Sava, Rameir is of the position moda b'shtar shakasvo, since the giver admits that he wrote this contract. So therefore, but he says, I wrote this contract, but I was sick. So therefore, a mayor is of the position, since he himself admitted it at this point, Therefore, the receiver no longer needs to certify it since the giver admitted that he wrote the contract. So therefore, since in this case the receiver is claiming to the giver that you wrote this that you gave me this contract, and the giver admits it. He admits that he wrote this contract, giving this gift contract, but he just says that he just claims that he was a shlivnara. So now the claimant no longer needs to certify it because the person who was claimed admitted it, and so therefore we say we don't say that this person is going to be believed to say that he was sick because he is the one who certified it. Whereas the Rabbanan are of the position, Moda B'shtar Shekasvo Tzarach L'Kaimo. Whereas the Rabbanan are of the position, no, that since the giver admits that he wrote the contract, but he also says that he was a shlimera, therefore, the person who is making the claim, the recipient, has to bring proof that in fact that was the case. He has to bring proof that it was certified because the whole evidence of the contract is based upon the one who is being sued. And so therefore, since in this case he's being sued, we would believe him unless the contract was certified on its own. So, hold on one second. So therefore, the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, why would this be the dispute? Hold on one second. So basically, why would this be the dispute? The Rameir says, Modeh b'shtar shekasvo, that we're going to say under those circumstances that the person does not need to certify. We assume the document is as though it's certified, and therefore the giver now has to bring a proof that he was a shlimera. And the Rabbanan say, Eino tzarach l'kaima. Once the person admits to the contract, then the plaintiff does not need to certify it. So now, under these circumstances, we already had this dispute one time. The Tanya, because we had a Bryce, and the Bryce says about this case is the following case. We go into the Bryce in Ksuvus. If the witnesses say, yeah, we signed this document, but we signed it under duress, meaning they admit to the contract, but they said, but it's a false contract. So under those circumstances, the Rabbi Meir's other position, we believe the witnesses that they signed the contract, they certified it, but we don't believe them to disqualify the contract. So therefore, Meir's other position that we believe their testimony that the contract was certified and the person doesn't need to certify it anymore. That's the position of Rabbi Meir. And the Chachamim say no, that we believe them that they wrote the contract, believe them that it was false. So he says, Moda b'shtar shekatzvo, that you would need to certify it, even though they admit that the Chachamim be of the position that the Chachamim omrim ne'emanim, that we believe these witnesses, and so therefore the Chachamim are of the position that you would need to certify it under those circumstances because we believe these witnesses. So only by certifying it would you negate the witnesses. So tzricha, the Gemara says we need them to be arguing both in the case of Ksubos and also in the case of our Mishnah over here. If you only had the case in Ksubos, we would say Bahika Amir Rabbanan. In that case, the Rabbanan would say Mode B'shtar Shekasvot Tzarach Kaimo. Why? Mishum Dalime Edim Umari Shtar. Because they're the witnesses themselves who are signing the document are strong, and they're the ones who ruin the contract. But here in our case, who Delav Kol Kamine Amalo. But here in our case, this person himself, he is the one. Only the one who is making the the person, the defendant, the one who's being sued, he's the one who says, yeah, that's my contract, but I was a shlimera. Maybe we wouldn't say Moda B'Shar Shekosvo that Tzarach L'Kaimo. Maybe the Chachamim would agree with Rabbi Meir into this case. V'imar Baha, and if you only have the case over here, Baha Kama Rabbi Meir. Here Rabbi Meir would say Moda B'Shar Shekosvo, that if he admits to it, if he admits to the contract under this circumstances, because the person himself admits to it. But in the case of Ksuvos, maybe you would agree with the Rabbanan, because there, where the witnesses come to cancel out the contract, maybe we say the Rameir would agree with the Rabbanan that there, the document of the witnesses is not considered enough of a certification. So therefore, maybe we agree with the Rabbanan. So therefore we say Tzricha, we need it in both cases. And indeed, Rabba said, Raya be'edim. Rabba agrees with Rav Huna. Now, when it's said in our Mishnah, the Chachamim say that people are making the claim again, the people are making the claim have to bring a proof with witnesses. My timer. What's the reasoning? Why? What's the reasoning? So what's the reasoning that unless you brought witnesses that he was healthy, that the giver would be able to keep the property? If you want to say that in general, it says in contracts when he was walking on the marketplace, and in this case, it doesn't say he was healthy. So therefore, it proves he was sick. But just the opposite. In general, he says when on the Shlimra document, it says when he's lying on the bed, but here it doesn't say he was lying on the bed. So the Shema Min Abari, we might have thought that here it proves he was healthy. So equal memar hachav, equal memar hachav. No, because you could plausibly argue both cases. We assume that he was healthy. We would assume the money was in the status. We assume it's in the status of the person who was the giver, and therefore the recipient would have to bring a claim that he was indeed sick. And so this dispute about how we understand our Mishnah, when it says the Chachamim say that he needs to bring a proof, is it a proof with witnesses or is it a certification of the contract? So this is actually, the same dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. That Rabbi Yochanan is of the position that you have to bring a proof with witnesses, Raya be'edim, that you need to bring a proof with witnesses. And Reish Lakish is of the position, Raya b'kiyum ashtar. Reish Lakish says, the Chachamim say you need to certify the contract, the gift, if you indeed want to take it away. So Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. So Rabbi Yochanan challenges Reish Lakish from an incident that happened in Bnei Brak. Bnei Brak, we know, is the place where Rabbi Akiva lived. It was not the children of Barak, but it was a place. That's what Rashbam reminds us. Today we know Bnei Brak is the center of Torah, but this was an incident that happened in Bnei Brak. That a person had sold his father's assets, and we're going to learn from the story it was somebody who was too young to sell, Umeis, and then he died. After he sold his father's assets, he died. Ubao b'nei mishpacha, and the people of his family came, vir iraru, and they came along and they said, actually, the sale should not be valid. Katan haya b'shas misa. He was a minor at the time of the death. We'll see on tomorrow's daf. Doesn't mean he was an actual minor, but even under the age of 20, he would not have been allowed to sell. So they said it's not a good sale. They said, yeah, it's a valid. Yes, he sold it, but he wasn't able to sell it. And they asked Rabbi Akiva, Ma'u Bodko. And they said to Rabbi Akiva, can we check him? So at that point, Rabbi Akiva said, Rabbi Akiva was the Rosh Yeshiva of Bnei Brak, and Amar Lahem, yeah, Temr Shaim Lenavlo. Rabbi Akiva said, you're not allowed to desecrate the body by exhuming him. And even if you do exhume him, you're going to think that he's in the signs change after death. So you might think he's an adult, but it's not an indication. Maybe if he would have been alive, then he would have been able, even if it looks like now that he was a sign of an adult, it's possible that if he would have lived, he would have recognized that it's not a real sign. So therefore, Rebbe Kiva says there's nothing you could do. So now this is why this is a question against Reish Lakish. Again, Rebbe Yochanan is of the position that you bring proof with witnesses, and Reish Lakish is of the position that it means a proof with a contract. With Kiyum Shtaros. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan on top of 154b says, Bishlam Aladidei, it makes sense according to me. The Mina Raya Be'edim, I see you need to bring a proof with witnesses. So therefore, Kivan the Amar Ul Kuchos, I su Edim, since Rabbi Kiva said to the purchasers, bring witnesses, V'lo Ashkachu, and they didn't find any witnesses. Hainu de Ka'asu V'amrway. That's why the purchaser said, let's check him out and prove that he was an adult. But according to you, Reish Lakish, the Amras Rai B'Kiyum Ashtar, they say you need to bring a proof. You say you need to bring a proof by certifying the contract. Why do you need to why do you need to check out the body? Why do you need to check the body to prove that he was an adult? It would have been sufficient. You should have just certified the contract and therefore established and therefore get the assets. So Reish Lakish responds, no, me savris. No, you think that this was in the domain of the family and the people who bought it are trying to get it back from the family. And they're coming along and making a claim and they're trying to get it from the sellers. That's not what's going on. In fact, the assets here are in the domain of the purchasers already. And the family members came along, and they're making the claim and they want to get it back. And so therefore, since they're coming to make it back, they're saying the sale is not valid. And so therefore, it states that Rabbi Akiva says, no, you have to bring a proof. And so therefore, there's not a question on Reish Lakish's position. And indeed, this is logical to make this assumption that that's what's going on here. From the fact, Rabbi Akiva says to them, he says, you're not able to desecrate his body, and they were quiet. Now, if you're saying his family members are the ones making the complaint, that's why they were quiet. But if you're saying that the purchasers are the ones who are making the claim, why would they have been quiet there? They could have made an argument to Rabbi Kiva and not Zuzi Yavina. We paid good money for this. And now you want to tell us that we can't exhume the body? Linvo, let us desecrate him. He sold it to us. We want to prove he's an adult. I think Gemara says, no, imashum ha, well, no, if that would have been your argument, that would not have been a proof. Because that's what Rabbi Akiva could have said to the purchasers. First of all, you're not permitted to desecrate him. And if you want to say, oh, let us go and desecrate him because we paid good money, that's not a proof, because that's why Rabbi Akiva says the second thing. No, the signs, you can't investigate the body after death because the signs change, the body changes. So now Gemara says, Shal Reish Lakish, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Again, Reish Lakish says it when he says to bring a proof, it means to bring a proof with Kiyum Shtaros by certifying the contract, and then the recipient can keep it. So Shal Reish Lakish, that's Rabbi Yochanan. Zusha Shanuya b'Mishas Bar Kapara. What about the fact that we learned in the Mishnah of Bar Kapara? If a person is consuming the produce on a field, and the assumption is he thinks it's his. And somebody comes along and says it's mine. And the guy who's working the field says, here's the contract, you sold it to me. Or he gave it to me as a gift. So if he says, if the person who makes the claim says, listen, if the person who makes the claim says, listen, I never saw this contract forever, then he needs to certify the contract. But im amar shtar pasimhu, ushtar amana, shemacharti ucha, but if he says, listen, it's a contract, I admit that this contract exists, but it was a contract that was just like a show contract, like a shtar pasim to make it look like I have money, or I wrote a few in advance and the sale never happened, or I sold it to you and never pay me. Meaning to say I admit to the contract, but I say that there is extenuating circumstances why we don't believe the contract. If there are witnesses, we follow the witnesses. Otherwise, we follow after the contract. And so we see from here, even though the contract was not certified, and we see from here, so do you want to say that this is the position of Rabbi Meir here, that this price is like Rabbi Meir? And you want to say that Bar Kapara brings this anonymous price and it's possibly like Rabbi Meir? No, must be the Chavim also say so how could you say that our Mishnah is the dispute between Rabbi Meir and the Rabbanan when the Rabbanan also say Moda B'Shtar Shekasvo Ein Tzarech Kaimo? So that's what Rabbi Yochanan. So therefore, we see from here. So Amarle Lo Shani Omer Divrei I call Moda B'Shtar Shekatzo Ein Tzarech Kaimo. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Rish Lakish, no, I'm of the position that everybody says Moda B'Shtar Shekatzo Ein Tzarech Kaimo. I say that everybody says that if you admit to this contract, you don't need to certify this contract. And when we learned in our Mishnah, the Chachamim say that the people who receive the gift have to bring a proof. It doesn't mean that they have to bring a proof of kimashtaros, but they have to bring a witnesses that he was healthy. Gemara says, but we know that they are in fact arguing about whether or not you need to certify the contract. It's not, because we learned in the Mishnah in Ksubos, didn't we just say that they do in fact have this argument in the Mishnah Ksubos? So Rabbi Yochanan responds to Reish Lakish, yeah, if we find in the case where the witnesses himself say that the contract was bad, fine. In that case, they could cancel the contract, and so therefore, but will we say this about the borrower himself? Meaning to say we have to draw a distinction between the witnesses. They could cancel the contract because they are even greater than the borrower himself. With respect to the borrower, also the Chachamim would agree. They would admit that after he himself admits to the contract, then therefore he can no longer certify it. He can no longer cancel it, and it doesn't need to be certified. But you yourself admitted that it was said in your name that the B'nai Mishpacha brought a valid claim that since the contract was not certified except on the basis of their mouths, they are believed to cancel it. And so therefore, we see from here that he's at the position, Moda B'Shtar Shekasvo Tzarech Kaimo. So Amalei Zu Elazar Amar. He said, I didn't say that was the position of my student Rabbi Elazar. I never said that. So Amar Rabbi Zera. So Rabbi Zera says, okay, so Rabbi Yochanan wants to reject that what his student said in his name. Even if Rabbi Yochanan will reject what his student Rabbi Elazar said, will he be able to reject what his teacher said? The Amar Rabbi Yani, Amar Rabbi. Rabbi Yani said in the name of Rabbi, if they admit to the contract that it was written, that at that point it still needs to be certified. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi says, this is not our Mishnah. It says, Ein Raya El B'Kiyum Shtar, that the Chachamim say he has to certify the document, even though he admits to it. So Rabbi Zera answers the position of Rabbi Yochanan. Baram Niran Divrei Rabbi Yosef to Amar Rabbeinu Yosef Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. And he says, Zo divrei chachamim. This Mishnah of Bar Kapara is the position of the chachamim who say Moda b'shtar shekasvo that you do not need to certify them. Or Rameir Omer Moda b'shtar shekasvo tzarich l'kaimo. That you do need to certify them. My divrei akol. And what does it mean when Rabbi Yochanan says that Bar Kapara's Mishnah says everybody admits Moda b'shtar shekasvo ain't tzarich l'kaimo? So what does he mean? The Rabbanon or Gabi Rabbi Meir divrei akol. That the position of the Rabbanon as a majority vis-a-vis Rabbi Meir as an individual is considered like it's divrei akol. And therefore Rabbi Yochanan says everybody is of the position that even though he admits to the contract, Moda b'shtar shekasvo, then he doesn't need to certify it, just like the Chum said. But didn't we learn the opposite in our Mishnah? That Chum needs to bring a proof, meaning to say Moda b'shtar shekasvo that ain't tzarich l'kaimo. We see from here, so we see the Chumar on the position that you still need to certify because we said that the Chumar on the position, and Rabbi Meir says tzarich l'kaimo, and Chumar saying our Mishnah ain't tzarich l'kaimo. How could you say that according to our Mishnah, the Chumar on the position, Moda b'shtar shekasvo ain't tzarich l'kaimo? It says that they need to certify the contract. And Gemara says ipoch. Reverse it. According to Rabbi Yochanan, we have to reverse the names of the Tanaim in our Mishnah. The Chachamim say that the one who received the gift get it right away, and they don't need to certify it. Or in Meir's other position, the ones who receive the gift have to bring the proof. But didn't we learn in the Bryce and Ksuvos that the witnesses are not believed to disqualify the contract? Meaning to say, Rabbi Meir's other position, tzarich l'kaimo, and the Chachamim say Nemanin, that ain't tzarich l'kaimo. Excuse me. Then we see in that position that Rabbi Meir's other position, Moda b'shtar shekasvo ain't tzarich l'kaimo, and the Chachamim argue. Gemara says epoch, reverse that also. But Rabbi Yochanan raya be'edim kamar. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan say you bring a proof with witnesses? And so therefore, this is clearly an indication, since Rabbi Yochanan says that you need to bring proof with witnesses, that the person who gave it was healthy, and it's not enough with certification. Or Meir and Chachamim don't argue about Moda b'shtar shekasvo. And now you want to say Rabbi Yochanan is in the position that the dispute is Moda b'shtar shekasvo and tzarich l'kaimo or not. And Gemara says epoch. No, reverse that again. Leimo epoch nami tiyufta. So the Gemara says, well, since we're reversing all these positions, maybe we should also reverse the names in the earlier question. That Rabbi Yochanan was not the one who asked Reish Lakish from the incident to Bnei Brak, but it was Reish Lakish who asked Rabbi Yochanan. Because the difficulty was from the incident to Bnei Brak, that implies that you have to bring a proof with witnesses. And according to, so maybe Reish Lakish is the one who says that. The Gemara says, no, don't do that. Lo, Achika Amar, Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish. This is what Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish. Bishlam Aladidi, it makes sense according to me, that Mina Raya Bekim Ashtar. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Reish Lakish, makes sense according to me, because I say you just need to bring a proof with certification of the contract. And the Mishkachas law, the Nachtil Kuchos Nechasim. And that makes sense. How is it possible that the purchasers will go down to get these assets? Meaning to say, because when they come to claim the assets from their family, and they have a certification and they have a certified contract, even though the Mishpacha said it was a katan, they're not going to be correct. And according to you, that you say that the proof that they need to bring is with witnesses, and so therefore they would have to bring witnesses. How could the purchasers go down to the assets after he's dead? Meaning to say he's a minor, and so they can't bring a proof. Amrulay, and so therefore Reish Lakish responds to Rabbi Yochanan, Modino chach be'ira du'imnei mishpacha delav irahu. He says, I would be of the position that they would have to bring witnesses, because I'll admit to you that the purchasers are going to be correct in their claim, even without bringing witnesses that he was an adult. And the complaint of the family is not a valid complaint, Micah Amri, because they're saying katan haya, because they're saying your claim was that he was a minor. That's not a good claim. Because we have an assumption that a minor cannot vote, that witnesses would not sign a contract for a minor unless he was an adult. And so that brings us to tomorrow's discussion. Okay, it's a little bit of confusing stuff, so we need to do a lot of chazara on this stuff. Yasha koach to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.